What if I told you that the true story of Scotland is uncarved into its castles or written in ancient texts, but hidden deep inside its blood? For centuries, we thought we knew the story of Celts and Clans, but what if that story is wrong? Clues hidden in the DNA of people today have shattered that myth, revealing a past far stranger and more complex than we ever imagined. Hidden in the biological blueprint of modern Scots are the ghosts of Ice Age hunters with dark skin and piercing blue eyes. Powerful warriors who nearly erased entire family trees and unique tags in their DNA that simply shouldn't be there. This isn't just a story of Scotland. It's a journey into one of the most unique family histories on Earth. A history so distinct that modern science can often trace a person's family tree not just to Scotland but to individual islands and glens that have remained untouched for thousands of years. Scotland's DNA is not just about ancestors, it's a time capsule. When we picture Scotland's past, our minds conjure images of tartan-clad warriors and Gaelic-speaking clans. It's a powerful, romantic image, but it's a massive oversimplification. The truth, written in the language of our bodies, is that there has never been one single Scottish people. Instead, the DNA of Scotland is a living document, a complex tartan woven from countless different threads. Each thread is a different tribe, a different migration, a different wave of people who left their mark on this rugged land. Some threads are bold and dominate the pattern, while others are faint, almost invisible, yet crucial to the whole design. And now, modern science is letting us pull on these threads to trace them back through time and uncover the epic story of how this unique family tapestry was made. In fact, studies have found that the genetic map of Scotland today still mirrors the boundaries of its ancient, early medieval kingdoms. It's proof that long before Scotland was a single nation, it was a land of many distinct peoples, and their shadows still linger in the cells of Scots today. This journey won't take us to a single origin, but through a series of transformative chapters, each adding a new, shocking layer to the story. We will travel back to the end of the last ice age, witness the arrival of revolutionary farmers, and stand before the horseback warriors who would forever change the destiny of Britain, written not in history books but in blood. Let's rewind. Over 12,000 years ago, Scotland wasn't a land of clans or castles. It was buried under ice. But as the glaciers melted, life returned. First the forest, then the animals. And following them came the first people. These were Stone Age hunter-gatherers, pioneers in a new world. For a long time, their story was told only through the stone tools they left behind. But by studying ancient remains, science has given these ghosts a voice. And here's where things get wild. Recreations based on their internal instruction manual revealed these first Scots didn't look anything like we'd expect. They likely had dark to black skin and striking blue or green eyes. For thousands of years, these were the people of Britain. But here is where Scotland's story begins to be different. While the trace of these people was largely overwritten in other parts of Europe, it found a refuge in Britain. Today, modern Scots still carry one of the highest amounts of DNA from these ancient hunters. It's like a living fossil, a family history preserved for over 10,000 years, thanks to the rugged isolation of the Highlands and Islands. While the rest of Europe was constantly reshaped by newcomers, Scotland's mountains and sea lochs shielded these ancient family trees. Their story didn't vanish. It became the foundational layer. But their survival wouldn't last forever, because a new wave of people was coming with a biological blueprint powerful enough to rewrite Scotland's story. For 6,000 years, the hunter-gatherers had Scotland to themselves. But around 6,000 years ago, a new kind of people arrived. These were the first farmers. They came from the area of modern-day Turkey, and they brought with them a revolutionary toolkit: wheat, barley, cattle, and sheep. Their arrival marked one of the most profound transformations in human history. They cleared forests, built permanent homes, and began to build monuments. Across Scotland, their legacy is written in stone. From the breathtaking Callanish stones on Lewis to the mysterious Ring of Brodgar in Orkney, these structures speak of a sophisticated society with a deep connection to the land and the cosmos. For a time, these two groups, the original hunters and the new farmers, lived alongside each other. The clues in their DNA show the local hunter-gatherer populations were slowly blended into the expanding farmer communities. The ancient hunter-gatherer blueprint wasn't erased, but it was significantly watered down. For a time, the main family signature in Scotland was that of these farmers. But the story of Scotland is one of dramatic and often brutal change. The age of the farmer was about to come to a sudden and violent end. Around 4,500 years ago, a massive shift occurred across Britain, a change so profound it remains one of the most dramatic population changes in European prehistory. A new culture swept in from mainland Europe. They are known as the Bell Beaker people, named for the distinctive pottery they buried with their dead. But their pottery wasn't what changed Scotland forever. It was their DNA. These were the descendants of a powerful, nomadic people from the plains of what is now Ukraine and southern Russia. These were the Yamnaya, a horse-riding culture that had begun a massive expansion across Europe. When they arrived in Britain, the impact was not one of gradual mixing. It was a near-total takeover. Studies of ancient DNA revealed something jaw-dropping. Within just a few centuries, they replaced up to 90% of the existing people in Britain. The family history of the farmers who built Stonehenge and the Ring of Brodgar was largely wiped out on the father's side of the family tree. These newcomers brought new physical traits, like the instructions in our DNA for lighter skin and eye colors. And they brought a new family signature passed down only from father to son. Before their arrival, this particular signature was nowhere to be found in Britain. Today, it's carried by a huge majority of British men, including those in Scotland. Its dominance is a stark testament to the sheer scale of the change. And once again, Scotland's story has a unique twist. Scotland, along with Ireland, appears to have kept a higher amount of the DNA from these warrior newcomers than England did. It's like weaving a cloth with two very different threads, one ancient, one new. The Beaker people didn't just add a layer, they created a new foundation. Their arrival was arguably the single most important event in the making of the Scottish people. The age of the warrior began, the Bell Beaker wave was a tsunami, but the tide of new people didn't stop. The Bronze and Iron Ages were a period of continued connection and subtle, yet significant, changes to the population's DNA. Further waves of people trickled in from the continent, particularly into southern Britain. These later arrivals brought back some of the older farmer DNA, creating a slightly different genetic balance in what would become England. In Scotland, the potent combination of high warrior and leftover hunter-gatherer DNA remained more pronounced. This period also saw a fascinating survival story unfold, the spread of the ability to digest milk. The Beaker people, despite raising cattle, mostly couldn't digest milk as adults. But over the next 1,000 years or so, this ability became much more common. This is a perfect example of survival of the fittest. In a northern climate with limited sun for vitamin D, the ability to get nutrients from dairy would have provided a massive advantage in staying healthy and raising families. By the time the Roman legions arrived, the people they met were the product of this complex layering. They were biologically descended from steppe warriors, spoke Celtic languages, and lived in a landscape of hillforts and brachs. These were the people who would soon be known as the Britons, and more mysteriously, the Picts. The rugged geography of Scotland encouraged different regions to develop in their own ways, allowing their unique family signatures to solidify. The stage was set for the historical identities we can still detect in the DNA of Scots today. When the Roman Empire expanded into Britain, it drew a line in the Sanhedrin's wall. While southern Britain was brought under imperial rule, the land to the north, Caledonia, remained unconquered. This historical fact had a profound effect on the DNA of the people. Unlike in England, where Roman settlements led to a minor influx of DNA from across the empire, the effect on Scotland was almost zero. The people north of the Wall maintained their Iron Age family history. It was in this crucible of resistance that the identities of Scotland's early peoples were forged. To the Romans, they were the Picts, the Painted Ones, fierce tribes who covered their bodies in dye and carved mysterious symbols into stone. For centuries, their fate was one of history's great puzzles. Who were the Picts and why did they seem to vanish? DNA has solved that mystery. The Picts weren't outsiders at all. They were the direct descendants of Britain's local Iron Age people, and they didn't disappear, they blended. Today, People in the northeast of Scotland share a clear family link to these ancient Pictish individuals. But the Picts weren't alone. As Roman power faded, the map fractured. In the southwest lived the Britons of Strathclyde, linked by their DNA to people in Wales and Cornwall. From across the Irish Sea came the Gaels, settling on the west coast, bringing the ancestor of the Scottish Gaelic language and a strong family connection to Northern Ireland. And in the southeast, the Anglo-Saxons pushed north, establishing a Germanic element in the DNA of the Borders region. By the 9th century, Scotland was at least 4 major, distinct cultural and genetic zones: Picts, Gaels, Britons, and Angles. These were not just political areas. They were different groups of people. And these ancient divisions are so strong they have survived for over 1,000 years. We've journeyed from the Ice Age to the dawn of the first Scottish kingdoms. It's an incredible story of replacement and resilience. If you've ever taken a DNA test, did you find anything surprising? Were there any unexpected connections to these ancient peoples? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. Just as these fledgling kingdoms were vying for power, a new storm broke. From the fjords of Scandinavia, longships descended upon the land. This was the beginning of the Viking Age, and it would add another dramatic layer to Scotland's family tapestry. The Viking impact was not the same everywhere. In the east, raids were brutal but brief. But in the north and west, it was a different story. The northern isles of Orkney and Shetland and the Hebrides were not just raided. They were conquered and settled. For centuries, these islands were part of a Scandinavian world. This left a massive mark on the people's DNA. The evidence is staggering. In Shetland and Orkney, as much as a quarter of the DNA comes from the Norse. Some studies of family lines passed from father to son in Orkney show a contribution of up to 60%, higher than in many parts of Norway itself. Modern Orcadian and Shetlandic families can carry more Viking blood than Scandinavians. That's how deep the Norse imprint went. The evidence also tells a more complex story. It wasn't just male warriors who came, but whole families, men, women, and children. The result was the emergence of a new mixed culture, the Norse Gaels, who blended Scandinavian and Gaelic traditions, language, and of course DNA. The Viking Age fundamentally altered the family history of Northern and Western Scotland, weaving Scandinavian heritage so deeply into the local population that the people of the Northern Isles are genetically as much the children of the Vikings as they are of the Picts or Gaels. By the 11th century, the Kingdom of Alba was finally beginning to resemble the nation we know today. But building a nation wasn't just about conquest. It was also about strategic immigration. Scottish kings began to look outwards, inviting new people to bring their skills and their DNA into the kingdom. This period saw the arrival of the Normans. These were not the conquerors of 1066, but their descendants, invited north by kings like David I. They were granted vast estates and established many of the great Scottish noble families: Bruce, Stuart, Comyn, and Balliol. Their DNA trickled down from the upper classes, adding another layer of French and Norse family history. But they weren't the only ones. The same kings encouraged Flemish merchants and craftsmen to settle in the new royal towns. Surnames like Fleming are a living testament to this migration. This period marks a shift from large-scale replacement to the integration of powerful families. It was a time of deliberate Europeanization. These later migrations didn't fundamentally alter the deep ancestral foundations, but they added new and important threads to the weave, making the nation's DNA an ever more complex mosaic. We have traced this epic story through thousands of years. But the most remarkable discovery is how these ancient events are not just history. They are a living reality, preserved in the DNA of Scots today. A huge study looked at the DNA of Scotland more closely than ever before. And what they found was astonishing. Instead of being one big group, the people of Scotland are divided into 6 main groups based on their shared family history, and these groups match up almost perfectly with the borders of the ancient kingdoms from over 1,000 years ago. Over a millennium after these kingdoms vanished, their genetic shadows remain. First, the borders. The DNA here shows more in common with people from England, reflecting the old Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Northumbria. Second, the southwest. The signature here aligns with the British Kingdom of Strathclyde, but also shows a very strong link to Ireland. Third, the Northeast. This large group is centered on the old heartlands of the Picts, connecting people from Aberdeenshire and Tayside directly back to their Pictish ancestors. Fourth, the Hebrides. The DNA here is highly distinct, showing strong links to the Gaels who came from Ireland. And finally, the two most distinct groups of all, Orkney and Shetland. These island groups stand apart. Their DNA is a testament to their history as a Norse colony, showing the highest amounts of Norwegian family history in the British Isles. What's fascinating is the incredible persistence of these identities. Despite centuries of movement, many Scots are still living in the same regions as their ancestors did over 1,200 years ago. This is why Scottish DNA is unlike anything ever discovered. It's not just a blend, it's a living map of its own deep past. Nowhere is the pattern of family history more intricate than on Scotland's islands. Orkney and Shetland, in particular, are genetic worlds unto themselves, shaped by Viking settlement and profound isolation. As we've seen, their DNA is saturated with Norse family history, but the story gets even stranger. Within Orkney, researchers have found tantalizing traces of even more distant ancestors. A small but significant clue in the DNA that points back to Siberia has been detected, which is largely absent elsewhere in Britain. It's a faint echo of a journey across the vast Eurasian plain thousands of years ago. This unique founding mix was then placed into an environment of intense isolation. For generations, people on these islands married within their own communities. This has led to an incredible degree of difference at ADNA level, not just from the mainland, but between the islands themselves. This long-term isolation has also had health consequences, allowing rare quirks in our DNA to become more common. It makes these island populations incredibly valuable for medical research, helping scientists identify the parts of our DNA linked to major diseases. This pattern isn't exclusive to the Northern Isles. The Hebrides are also a distinct group, shaped by their Gaelic heritage and sea-bound isolation. The islands are time capsules, preserving unique combinations of DNA that have been erased elsewhere. They are a testament to the power of geography in shaping a people. The story of Scottish DNA is not confined to the borders of Scotland. It's a global story. Beginning in the 17th century, large numbers of Scots moved to Northern Ireland, creating the population known as the Ulster Scots or Scots-Irish. They would then migrate onwards in huge numbers to North America, carrying their distinct Scottish DNA with them. Then came the famines and the Highland clearances. Poverty and forced eviction sent hundreds of thousands of Scots abroad. They went to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States, embedding their family DNA, whether from Pictish farmers or Viking settlers, into the foundations of these new nations. Today, it is estimated that tens of millions of people worldwide claim Scottish family history, a staggering number for a country with a current population of just over 5 million. And what is truly remarkable is that modern DNA testing can often connect these scattered populations back to their specific origins within Scotland with incredible precision. A person in Canada might discover their DNA doesn't just point to Scotland, but specifically to the Isle of Skye. An Australian might find a direct link to the Pictish heartlands of Aberdeenshire. This global scattering is the final explosive chapter. It took the incredibly complex family history forged in Scotland and scattered across the globe. The legacy of the Ice Age hunters, the steppe warriors, the Gaels, Picts, and Vikings is not just alive in the glens of Scotland. It's alive in the cells of tens of millions of people around the world. From the moment the first hunters stepped onto a newly thawed landscape to the scattering of their descendants across the globe, the story of Scotland's DNA is one of constant change, dramatic replacement, and stubborn resilience. We've thus seen how the myth of a single Celtic people falls away to reveal a truth that is far more compelling, a nation built from a mosaic of countless different pieces. We've witnessed the near-total takeover brought by the Bell Beaker warriors from the plains of Eurasia, who laid down the family foundation on the father's side for the peoples to come. We saw how the Romans drew a line, inadvertently creating an incubator where Picts, Gaels, Britons, and Angles would flourish into distinct peoples. And we saw how the Viking longships brought a torrent of Norse DNA, permanently reshaping the islands. The result is a family tapestry of unparalleled complexity. But the threads are not blended into a uniform gray. Instead, they form a vibrant pattern with regions and islands that have maintained their unique ancestral colors for over 1,000 years. From Ice Age hunters to Viking warriors, from painted Picts to far-flung traders, every Scot alive today is living proof of survival. And every descendant abroad is evidence that identity can outlast invasions, empires, and even time itself.